So yesterday we have seen some insights related to the OLAP, insights related to the OLTP transactions. Um, see, along with database, along with the OLAP or OLTP systems, if you are considering any specific database, if you're considering any specific data warehouse as well, the important concept here is how do you manage that specific databases? Now, the management, that only doesn't mean that if you are creating a database and it would be directly, uh, I mean, there should be some steps, there should be some rules and regulations which needs to be followed. Now, once you create any specific database, that doesn't mean that anyone can access it. There should be some security policies, there should be some access management policies applied to it. I mean, it's common. I mean, if you take any specific example, you're trying to purchase a product, assuming any product. Even if you're purchasing that product, you are the owner of that product. You have full rights. You can access that product. Uh, if you want, maybe you can, once the product is kind of completed, once the product, you have used that product, you can dismantle that product. Similarly, if you're trying to create any specific database, there is some person A. There is some person A. He wants to access that specific database. Now, person D has created this database. He's the owner of this specific database. So a person A wants to access this, person B wants to access this. So how access policies are given, how username and password is shared, how access policies are given, that is also very, very important. So how do you manage that access policies? How do you manage this specific database? Managing that database is called as database management system. Managing that specific database is called as database management system. So how do you manage, how security policies are set? Uh, if you are the owner, how many number of additional people you can add to that database for accessing that database? So all that rules are decided inside this database management system. So DBMS, how do you manage? To whom you can give it access? That is how database management system works. Now, in simple terms, if D is the owner and if person A is asking the access, how that access mechanism works. Access mechanism, if a person A is coming, who is not the owner, who doesn't have access to this database, what he'll do, he'll first try to log in the database. So there would be a login. Now, in the very first login, you will never get access, right? Some error would be shown that you are not authorized person to log into this database. So if he is not authorized, he can send a request to that person D, who is the owner. If he is unable to log in, he will send a request. So a request would be sent. So how that request is managed by the owner? D is the owner. So how this specific request from person A is managed by D, the person D who is the owner of the database, that process is called as management system cycle. Management system cycle. Now there are three different tiers. Tier 1, there is tier 2, and there is tier 3. So managing database and by which tier you are trying to manage, that is how the database management system works. Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So we will see few insights related to the architecture here. Database management system, in simple terms, it is nothing but, just a moment, should start from here. So what do you mean by database management system? It is a process. It is a software or, I mean, kind of process for appropriate security measures, management of database. If a database is created, what all security measures should be applied, who can access that database. So all that processes can be done using database management system. So it is a process in which all this process, I mean, all the methods can be applied here. So there are three different architectural formats in this database management system. One is tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Now, if you take which tier architecture is frequently used is, tier 1 is very straightforward. It is very straightforward. So a person A and there is a person B and there is a database between here. So if this person is trying to access this, he will never get direct access. So that request is sent to this person and this person approves the request. So this is tier one architecture. Straightforward. A request is coming from A. It is going to person D, who is the owner of the database. See, he directly approves it. So it is a tier one architecture. Tier one architecture is not used nowadays. Why? Because any person can randomly come and ask an access. Now, this person should go back and check whether that person is right or not. That mechanism is not present in the tier one architecture. It is simply requesting access and approving the access. So tier one architecture is not used nowadays. You can say it's a legacy system. Now coming to the tier two architecture, even tier two architecture is not frequently used. I mean, it is also legacy nowadays because people are moving from tier two to tier three. Now what that tier two and what that tier three architecture means, we need to first understand. So this is tier three architecture. I have directly jumped to tier three. Maybe I'll give you idea about tier two as well. Now, what do you mean by tier three architecture? Tier three architecture is nothing but the client and server architecture. We have a client. Client is nothing but a person who is trying to access any specific database. And server is nothing but where the information is stored, where our database is stored. So as I've said yesterday, a server can have multiple databases and one database can have multiple tables in it. So this is one database, we have multiple tables in it. That is how it works. So in simple terms, one server, this is server. There are multiple databases. This is database. And inside one database, this is also database. So inside one database, there are multiple objects. So this is table. This is one table in one of the different databases. This is how the architecture looks like. So in one server, there are multiple databases. Okay. So what does this tier three architecture suggest, or what does this tier three architecture do? Whenever a new person, now person is nothing but a client. So assuming that this is client A and server is managed by D, person who is the owner. So which we are discussing for tier one also, we would continue that same names. So person D is the owner of that specific database or server. The database is present inside a server. So whenever a client here requests a permission, requests the access permission, it goes through certain channel. That channel is called as application client. This client will reach out to this server. It will mention that I am person A who has certain username. I want to get access to this specific database which is present inside this server. So this person B will see what all details are mentioned by person A. Who is that person A? All the details related to person A will be mentioned. Once this person D, who is the owner of this specific server or a database, thinks that this person is the right person, he will approve that request. That request again will come down to a specific channel. So there is a communication medium here. This is tier, this is one level, this is second level, and this is third level. There are three different levels here. One is server level, second is client level, and third is connectivity between client and server. So that is why it is called as tier T architecture, three tier or tier three architecture. In simple terms, whenever a request is raised, that request is raised from a client. Client is level one. That request goes through certain channel. Channel means there is a communication medium. That channel is called as second level. And whenever it reaches to the level three where the database is resided, that level is called as level three. So that is tier three architecture. In case of tier one, it is straightforward. There is no communication medium. Request is raised, approved or disapproved. That is how it works. Yes, sir. Yeah. In case of tier two sometimes behaves like tier one only. Tier two also sometimes behaves like tier one only. Now the question is why people are not using tier 2, why people are directly moving to the tier 3. See, somehow few days back or few years back, tier 2 was also used. How tier 2 used to work? Within one single environment, there was client, there was server, there was no connectivity medium because everything was present inside one single environment. Whereas in case of tier 3, client is separately kept, server is separately kept. There is no common environment here. In order to connect this, there is a server or there is a communication channel. This is called as a communication channel. So this communication channel will always act as a medium between level 1 and level 2. This is why three-tier architecture is recommended nowadays, because in the tier 3 architecture or three-tier architecture, all the information from a client can be captured and shared with the server. So a client is trying to access from which region, client is trying to access from which country, client is trying to access from which device, what is the IP address of that client, everything is tracked inside this three-tier architecture. If it would have been tier 1, nothing has been tracked. If it would have been tier 2 also, it only knows, the server will only know that there is a person A who is trying to access. But all these details like IP address, location, which country, which device he's trying to log in, all these details are never tracked. In case of tier 3, why which is mostly used? Because all this information is tracked inside a channel. Because it goes through a channel. It goes through certain communication medium. So that communication medium tracks all this information. That is why three-tier architecture is mostly recommended or it is mostly used nowadays. And this is being used since last 5 to 6 years. Prior to that also, three-tier architecture was still present, but yeah, it was still evolving. It was not completely available. It was still evolving. So importance of database management system in simple terms, if a database is created and if you want to share that database, how do you share that? What all rules and regulations you follow? How security measures can be applied? All that processes can be done using database management system, right? So I'll take a pause of 1 minute. If you have any questions on this database management system, see, this is very, very important. Even though you would be working like a data analyst, assuming that you would be working like a data analyst, not as a database security analyst, or maybe not as a database security guy. In that case, if you have created a database and you want to share this database with your team members, how do you share it? If you want to share it with 4 team members, how do you share this database? All rules and regulations you should always have an idea about. Only then you can share it with a specific set of people. So I have few questions. Can you please give me an example of tier 3? MySQL is your tier 3 architecture, but the MySQL which we are using, that would be tier 2. Because tier 3 architecture is always installed on cloud. You cannot install on-prem. On-prem, usually it is tier 2. 90% of the time you can say it's a tier 2 architecture because on-prem is not always connected to the internet. It can be sometimes disconnected as well, but as and when it connects to the internet, it becomes tier 3. The most important part of this three-tier architecture is it should be always connected to internet, or you can say it is always connected to cloud. It should be always connected to the cloud. Three-tier should be always connected to the cloud or internet. Only then you can say it is three-tier architecture. The MySQL Workbench, which we would install going further, it is tier 2 because you are installing it in your own system. You would be installing it in your laptop or your desktop. But yeah, as I've said, it is not connected to the internet. That's the reason it is tier 2 architecture. Arvind, Do you have any other questions? Probably you posted a question at the start only. Now you have a question, or is it still not understandable? Okay. Cool. Um, Assuming that there are no questions, let's go further. This is how three-tier architecture works. We have seen that. Communication channel, level 1, level 2. Now, coming down to types of database management system, there are different types also. If there are three different architectures, there are four different types of database management systems. Now, what all that four different types are? See, 90% of the time, people end up using this relational database. Now, what do you mean by relational database? All your SQL databases are relational database. All your SQL databases, any SQL database which you take into consideration, all that SQL databases are relational databases. Now, the question is how this SQL is relational and what other three are. What other three databases are? What other three database management systems are? 90% of the time, it is SQL, which is relational. Now, in simple terms, why is it called as relational database? Why is it called as a relational database? Now, let's take an example of a banking system. Simple example of a banking system. So you're trying to create a modeling, a data modeling for a banking system or a database for a banking system. So for a banking system, it is not always recommended to have only one table, right? All the information which is stored from a bank, it should not be kept in one single table. It can be bifurcated into multiple tables. So there are two tables. In one table, the customer details are kept, or person who is trying to open an account with a bank, his details are kept. Basic details. What is the customer ID? What is the customer name? And some other details, some basic details. Now, if that person is trying to make a transaction, it is not always recommended to have one table, as I've said. Transactions can be kept in a different table, which is a transaction table. This is a transaction table. So inside this transaction table, all the transactions can be kept. It can be matched with the customer ID. A person who is trying to make a transaction, his customer ID is tracked here. Maybe 1, 2, 4, whomsoever is trying to make a transaction, his details are tracked inside this transaction table. So if there are two tables, how do you make sure that this customer has made a transaction? Only when there is a relationship between these two tables. There is a connectivity between these two tables. So you should have a connectivity between customer table and you should have a connectivity to the transaction table from customer. Only then this customer table, or if you're trying to fetch some information, it would be easier to fetch. If there is no relation, how do you make sure that the customer has made so and so transaction? That is not possible. So taking any example, you take any example, real-time example, almost 90% of the databases are relational databases. Not every information is stored in one single table. It is bifurcated into multiple chunks of table, that every chunk of table is related to the other chunk using some relation. So that relation is called as relational database management system. And all the SQL databases like MySQL, T-SQL, which is SQL Server, PL-SQL, which is Oracle, PostgreSQL, all these SQLs are relational database management systems. Now, again, I'll take a pause. Any questions on this relational database management system? So going further, how that relationship is created, how to manage that relationship, that you will get a more understanding when we try to create tables. But just to give you an idea, just to get started with what DBMS is and what type of DBMS are. So I've given you how relational database looks like. Going further, we would be discussing in detail how a relationship can be managed or how a relationship can be created. Any questions on this relational database? Okay. Silence, I'm taking it as no. Now, the other three databases, see, if you are not working on it, why to discuss it? But still, I'll give you an idea. What do you mean by hierarchical databases? What do you mean by hierarchical databases? Now, the word itself will give you there is a hierarchy of information. There is a hierarchy of information. What do you mean by network database? See, somewhere hierarchy and network database will look similar. Somewhere it will look similar. Now, hierarchy means, see, there is a database. This database is further connected to other two databases. Or probably there is one table. This table is further connected to one more table. This is table 2. This is table 3. This is table 1. Again, this table 2 is connected to two more database or two more tables. This is table 4 and this is table 5. Even this table 4 is connected to one more database, which is table 6. Now this table 3 is connected to one more database or table, sorry, table 3 is connected to table 7 here. So there is a flow of information. How that flow of information is, if you want to get any information from this table 6, you should connect from table 1 to table 2, this connection. Then from table 2 to table 4, this connection. From table 4 to table 6, this connection. So there is a hierarchy of information. This is one hierarchy. This is second hierarchy. This is third hierarchy. And in the fourth hierarchy, the table 6 is kept. Third, second, and first. So there is a hierarchy of information. Now, including this hierarchy, there is also a connectivity, right? There is a network. From table 1 to table 2, there is a network. From table 2 to table 4, there is one network. From table 4 to table 6, there is a network. So somewhere hierarchy, the hierarchical database and network database look similar, but there is a slight difference. Network is connectivity medium, hierarchies at which level they are kept. That is the basic difference between hierarchical and network database. 90%, as I've said, relational databases are used. 10% of the time, people end up using the other three databases, hierarchical, network, and object-oriented. Now, hierarchy is at which level that information is kept, that is hierarchy. How do you connect that hierarchies is called as network database. And the last one is object-oriented. What do you mean by object-oriented? If you take an example of Java, a programming language. So in case of Java, all the informations are stored in terms of objects. Same goes with SQL also. SQL have multiple objects. Like table is one of the object, view is one of the object. Now the question is how this relational is different with respect to object-oriented database. See, if you create a SQL and there is an object which is table and there is one more object which is one more table, you want to create a relation. You want to create a relation. A relationship can be easily created inside this relational database. But if you take an example of object-oriented database, there is one object and there is one more object. These objects are never related to each other. Both the objects are independent. Both the objects are independent. You cannot create a relationship. Where relationship is created, it is called as relational database. Where there is no relationship, there is no relationship. It is straightforward. There is no relationship. It is object-oriented database. For every question, you need to create an object. So if there is a question called as, I want to create a retail management system. So you need to create multiple objects in that retail management. None of the object is related to each other because it is not relational database. It is straightforward object-oriented database. Every object behaves independently. In simple terms, if you are getting confused, only focus on relational database. It is one of the widely used. 90 or more than 90% of the time, relational databases are used. hierarchical, network, and object-oriented, very, very limited use case. Or you could say from a data analyst point of perspective that are not at all used. Straightforward, that are not at all used. So if you're working as a data, probably a data management guy, data admin related roles, SQL admin, data admin related roles. In that case, you can go in depth and study about hierarchical, network, and object oriented databases. But from a data analyst, data scientist, data engineer, or a BI engineer role, relational database is what we need to focus on. The other three databases are not that specifically used. Any questions on this? The DBMS, four types of DBMS or four types of database management systems. Okay. So if there are no questions.
I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to understand entity relationships comes under other databases, like similar to the relational database.
Entity that is what you're trying to see, ER diagram, right?
Correct. Entity relationships, entities, they used to speak, right? So I'm not sure about that. I'm sorry.
Okay, so you can say if there is a relationship, it is relational database. If the entities are created and there is no relation, in that case, it is called object oriented, because every entity will work like a object.
Okay.
See, the word itself is giving you an idea, relationship.
Yeah. So entities is nothing but object. Okay.
Right? Or
yeah.
If it's entity relationship, it's a relational database.
Okay. And views also is an object in terms of
Yep.
entity. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
View is also one of the objects.
Okay.
Now, what all different types of SQL databases are there? The SQL Server, PostgreSQL. From IBM, we have DB2, we have MariaDB, we have MySQL, and we have PL-SQL, which is Oracle. MySQL and Oracle are both a product of Oracle database only, or from Oracle software only. Oracle software or Oracle organization is managing both Oracle as well as MySQL. MySQL was developed by Apache, but it was purchased by Oracle. It was developed by Apache organization, but it is purchased by Oracle only. So these are all different types of SQL databases, or these are the market leaders. There are many other SQL databases also, which are not frequently used, but yeah, if you are that specific databases which are not mentioned here, that are limited to the certain companies, certain clients only. Like Azure SQL, there is a SQL database called as Azure SQL. Azure SQL is 90% similar like SQL Server. But in case of Azure SQL, server is not managed by us. It is managed by the Microsoft itself. Whereas in case of SQL Server, you personally have to manage a server. You personally have to manage a database present inside that server. So there are few slight changes with respect to the other databases which are not mentioned here, but these 6 are frequently used SQL databases in day-to-day life. So let me discard this. Now I want help from Divya. So she would be sharing the screen. Now the question is why I am taking her help. See, I want to install this MySQL Workbench. I already have steps which are recorded inside a presentation. I would be sharing that presentation as well. Now, I already have that Workbench installed in my system, but I want it to be installed from fresh. So assuming that Divya hasn't installed it, Divya, I'll stop sharing the screen. Maybe I'll give you access to share the
Actually,
screen.
Ritesh, I do not have enough space on my laptop. I'm
Okay.
just checking. I've been trying to transfer, but it's not working. How much space do you need?
See, how much space do you have?
I think it says 129 MB. I'm sure it's
Okay.
not enough.
Okay. It will somewhere require 400 MB because it's some heavier workbench.
Ah,
Let me
okay, okay,
do.
got you.
Let me do it other way. Now, if you want to install this MySQL Workbench, I mean, follow the same steps which I'm doing. Only mention MySQL Workbench, right? If you mention it, the very first link, download MySQL Workbench. Now here it is installed in, I mean, the MySQL which we are installing, it is installed in 3 different entities. How that installation goes. First thing is, in order to write any SQL query, you need to have a workbench. Now, what that workbench means? Workbench is nothing but a notepad where you write your queries. It's nothing but a notepad where you write your queries. So Workbench, it is just a kind of editor, a text editor, or a notepad, whatever you write in notepad or wordpad, you want to run that code. So in order to run that code, you have to again load it to a server and then run it. So how SQL code is run? Inside a server, there is a notepad, which is nothing but a workbench. So workbench is nothing but a notepad. Workbench is one of the item. This is first item. It is nothing but a notepad where you write your queries. Where we write our queries. So this workbench will always have a server, and inside that server, there is a database. So this is level 1, level 2, and level 3. In 3 different entities, this MySQL Workbench would be installed. Whenever you are installing a workbench, you need to have a server, you need to have a database. Only then you can run that specific query which you have written inside that notepad or a workbench. So that's how it works. Yep. Any
The
question?
server is inside the workbench or the workbench
Yes.
is inside?
Workbench is nothing but a framework. It is a complete framework which is inclusive of notepad, which is inclusive of server, which is inclusive of database.
Got you.
So all these things are clubbed together in one single workbench. Right? So if you mention MySQL Workbench, go to the very first download MySQL Workbench. You need to select which operating system you are using. Now the question is, even for a Mac, it is supported. If you see which version of Mac you're using, you can select that OS version. You can still download it. So let's go with Windows. I have Windows. If you click on this download, see, this is just an installer. This is just an installer. If I install it, this is just an installer. See here, the second step is it will ask you to log in. There is an option, no thanks, just start my download. You can directly start your download. You can directly start your download. Right? If you open this, this is just an installer. Once you install this, again, it will ask you to download multiple entities. If I click on next, so it is asking me to download the SQL Workbench here. Click on next. How do you want to set up this workbench as a complete? Click on next. If you click on install, it will start installing the workbench here. It will start installing the workbench. Now the question is, this is only 40 MB. This size, this specific workbench installer, it is only 40 MB. If it is that the case, let's see. See, it is just an installer, which we have downloaded. It is just an installer. This is just an installer. 40 MB is just an installer. Once you set up this, it will again ask you to download multiple entities. Let me open the presentation as well. Give me a minute. I have a presentation where I've recorded all the steps. Now we are up till this step. This is the installer. Once you click on that installer, it should start. You will get this window, MySQL installer. Somewhere we have got that same window also. If I click on next, see complete and custom. The UI is slightly changed now. Do not get confused. The UI is slightly changed. I'm trying to see why this is only 30 MB. Usually we get 400 MB of information.
Do you want me to try, Ritesh, if it's only 30?
No, just a moment. Here we have gone wrong. Yep. See, once you go to this, do not download that 30 MB file. You can go back. Yeah. If you go to this download MySQL Workbench, see this 40 or 30 MB file, somewhere it will block. Even this is correct. If you're downloading it, it will take some time to completely load this. But there is one more option here. Go to download page. Here, there is this file with 303 MB, 303.6 MB. This is the right installer. This is the right installer. You can select which version. This 8.0.39 is the latest version. Now, the question is, if you are using 64-bit laptops, assuming that almost everyone is using 64-bit, how come this is 32-bit? This 32-bit is still supported in 64-bit laptops. So need not worry. Download this 303 MB file. If you download this 303 MB file, no thanks, just start the download. It will start downloading. So probably after a few minutes, once the download is done, if you double click on this download, the next window would be like this. You will get 4 steps which are listed here, choosing which setup, how that installation can be done, what should be the product configuration. And once all these 3 steps are done, the last step is installation is completely done. So let me see if it is getting downloaded. It is getting downloaded. Double click on it. So it should open that installer. For me, it will throw an error. Why? Because I already have this installation in my laptop. So that's the reason I was asking if anyone can share your screen. But anyways, let's try. I'll share this presentation as well. It's almost similar. Some new steps would be coming into picture. That's it. That would be the only update. Apart from that, there won't be any updates. Right? So this is the installer. It will check all the important packages which needs to be installed. Now it is asking me upgrade. It is directly asking me upgrade because I already have. That's the reason it is asking me an upgrade. Done. See, I already have this product. That's the reason the option is slightly different, but you people will get this window. If you're installing it for the very first time, if you already have in your systems, do not touch it, neither to upgrade. It is not recommended to upgrade also, because if it's working fine, let it be as it is. Now, this would be the window for you. Here in this choosing a setup, I would always recommend to use full setup. There are 3 options here. 4 options rather. Server, in case if you only select server, only server would be installed. You cannot use it for any writing queries there. If you only install client, there won't be any server. You can only write a query, but you cannot run it. And full, it would be combination of server and client clubbed together. And the last option is custom. I'm not sure if this custom option is still available. It is not available, which I feel, because this is not available since last 3 or 4 months. So always select full option. Full means everything would be installed. Now, once you select full, it will go to the next window, which is installation window. See, from choosing a setup, we are inside this installation. So it will install all these important entities, which MySQL requires: the workbench, server, client, shell, router. Router is nothing but your connection, your channel, connectivity channel. And there would be some sample examples and documentation which would be installed along with this services or products. So once this installation is done, see, the option here is execute. The option here is execute. Once you execute, it will start installing all these entities. So if the installation is done, this is how it should look. All the green marks should be available. It should be all green marks. If you still face an issue at this step, that one of the component is not getting installed, go back, again select the right option, again click on execute, then try to install all the steps. It is recommended that install all these products. If one of the product is missing, the MySQL Workbench will not work correctly. So, I mean, there won't be any problem here, but if there is an internet connectivity issue, only in that case, one of the product would be missing. So make sure your internet is stable and then install all these products. Once you execute, it will start installing and it will show the status as complete. And you see, it is x64, which is 64-bit. It is not 32-bit. Even though at the time of download, it was giving me as an option for 32-bit, but it would be installed as a 64-bit only. It would directly assume that your laptop is 64-bit and it would be installed as a 64-bit only. So need not worry. Once this installation is done, the third step is product configuration. You need to configure your server. What should be the username and password for that server? And how do you want to connect it using a channel? So this fourth step is product configuration. So once you come down to this product configuration, click on next. This is the window which you would be able to see. Again, I'm reiterating, one who have already installed this MySQL Workbench need not reinstall it. Why? Because your Workbench would be occupying a port name called as 3306. If this 3306 port is occupied by one of your SQL Workbench, you cannot reuse this port. Now, what do you mean by port? You are installing a Workbench in your local system. That's the reason it will occupy a port. Port is nothing but a networking option which is available inside any specific device. It would be a TCP IP port. So go with default option. Just check whether the port is 3306 or not. Click on next. If you click on next, it will go to the account and roles. See, it is not going to the authentication method. It will directly jump to the account and roles. Now, what do you mean by account and roles? Inside this account and roles, for server, you need to set up password. Now, what do you mean by username here? There should be some username, right? Where I have mentioned it is directly asking me a password. It is directly asking me a password. Where do I mention that username? There is a port here. but there is no option to mention account and roles are coming, but how do I mention the password, username? So that's the reason. Anyone, if you are doing it along with me, can you share your screen? Let's see, because this step authentication method is skipped here directly. If you see from type and networking, I'm directly coming to the account and roles. Now the reason, I'll also give you an idea what would be the username. Username would be admin only. Username is your admin. Let me open MySQL Workbench from my end. So if you see here, username, I have kept it as root. So 50% of the time it's admin and 50% of the time it is root. Now we have to go back and identify which one is correct. I have used root. Root is working for me. And when, I already have this workbench installed. That's the reason whenever you open this workbench, if you're trying to activate this server is located inside the localhost 3306 port. Username is default root. So assuming that your username would be default root, you should mention password here. The password should be remembered. Use a password which is easily remembered, which you can easily type. So you can mention a password here. Once you come down, it will again ask you some options here. Go with the default option. Do not change anything. This is also default option. In case of server file permission, grant all the permissions. Grant all the permissions, the first option. Once that is done, it will start installing all these processes. Installing means Workbench is installed. It will start installing the server, its router, all these components would be installed, and your firewall rules will also be updated along with this SQL server. The MySQL Workbench, which we are installing. So need not touch any firewall rules also. It would be automatically set up by the SQL Workbench itself. So once this is done, installation is done, this is how it will look. Host name is nothing but your username. You can see host name is root here. You can easily check what is your host name, which is your username, which is nothing but your root. Password is not mentioned because password is sensitive. So you should remember your password, which you have mentioned at the above steps. Once the complete setup is done, this is how it will look. Connect to a server. So here you can mention username will automatically come as root or username will automatically come as admin. Username would be automatically taken. Username is nothing but your host name. It would be automatically taken. You can mention your password. Once you mention your password, a black window will come, and this is how it would be visible to you. This is how it would be visible to you. The same workbench which is visible to me. This is how. So every time whenever I try to log into a workbench, all this information will look, this UI will remain similar. So username will automatically come. You should mention what password I have used at the time of setup. So I've written my password. You see, all the files are coming here directly. All the files are coming here directly.
Hello, Ritesh.
Yep.
Yeah, can I share my screen so you can see my what?
Just a moment. Yeah, I'll stop sharing. Give me the access so that you can share your screen. Yeah, I've made you co-host. You can share your screen. Yep, looks good. Able to see your screen.
Yeah, I think I already previously downloaded, so is
Now
this is the
double click
correct
on. Yeah, double click on. Yes, you have already downloaded it. So it is automatically getting connected. So there is no password, it seems. You haven't mentioned any password.
Yeah. So is there any required to mention any password?
Okay, now the question is, if you want to have a password, you want to set up all this, you can still do it, but I would recommend, if it's working fine for you, do not touch it. You can again uninstall and reinstall it, even that is feasible. But if it's okay, if it's working fine, do not touch it. Let it be as it is, because sometimes 3306 port will behave weird. So that's the reason I'm saying do not touch it.
Okay.
Okay, so anyways, you can stop sharing. Let me give you an idea how it works.
I just downloaded it, Ritesh. If you want, I can share my screen.
Okay, just a moment. Yep. I've given you co-host. You can share your screen.
Can you see my screen now?
Yep. Yes. You have selected full. Yeah, click on next. Yeah, execute. It will start installing it. For few of you, this execution step would be sometimes slow. For Bahadur, it's fast only, but few of you might feel it is taking 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Need not worry. It all depends on your port availability. It all depends on your internet connectivity as well. Not only internet, including the port availability. So it will take some time. Yeah, you need to spend some time. Yeah, click on next. Okay, yeah, click on next. So it will ask you to configure. Now you see the port is 3306. That means this port is not occupied by any other SQL. Yeah, click on next. Yeah, authentication method. Okay, it is using a strong password. Yeah, go with the recommended one only. Click on next. Now you can mention your password. See, username is default root, MySQL root password. Yeah,
Okay.
you can mention your password. Yeah, click on next. This should be fine. Yeah, click on next. You are the standard admin. Yes. Next. Yeah, full. Click on next. Yeah, click on execute.
No need to select these options, right?
No, it would be automatically executed. These are all these steps. Yeah. Click on finish. Next. Finish. Yeah, again, next. Now you can mention your password. So username, it is automatically taking. So let it be as it is. Yeah, click on check if it is able to log in. Just click on next. Execute. Click on finish. Next. Yep, finish. So this is how it should open. Yeah, here. So every time you log in, you should mention your password.
Okay.
Now, this is your SQL Workbench, which includes server, which includes client, which includes router, which is a connectivity medium. Now, see, do not get confused. Towards left, there is an option called as navigator. Inside that, there is a management tab. Inside management, there is a server status. Yeah, you can click on server status. See, this is your server. Whether your server is working fine, what is the server status, where is it installed, what is the version of it, all that information is visible here. You can see your disk space is also available in server directories. And once you write a query, your server would be busy. So it will also list the traffic, key efficiency, select per second. So all this would be running. Now, as of now, it is ideal. That's the reason only 4% of CPU is occupied. This is how it looks. Now, there is one more option below server status, that is client connection. Click on client connection. See, these are all the client connections. These are all default client connections. So you will have a question that how many clients are connected? I'm the only user. How many clients are connected? These are all the default client connections. Below client, there is one more component called as user and privileges. Can you click on it? Yeah. Now, there is an option called as account limit. Go to that. Okay, this is not navigating, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, click on refresh, below. Yep. Now the question is, you are the only admin. That is the reason you are only able to see your, you're the only user who are using this. There is an option called as add an account. Click that below. See here, you can add any person who want to access this. Now, anyways, this is on-prem. If you connect it to on-prem server and then you share this server with outside user who wants to access, you can give that server name or that person details also. What should be the login name? What should be the password for that person? You can share that password to that person who wants to access this specific MySQL Workbench. For now, we are the only users, so we would not add any person. Now, there is an option called as revert below. Yeah, you can click on revert. It will go to the default tab. Yeah. Anyways, so these three tabs will give you an idea what is the server status, client connections, and users. Now, below in that same left tab only, you are in the administration. Towards right, there is a schema. Below. Again below. Come down. Yeah. Towards right, there is schemas. Click on schemas. Now you can see there are three different schemas which are available. Schemas are nothing but it is looking like a database. These are all the databases. So there are default three schemas or three databases which will come along with this installation. One is Sakila, one is Sys, and one is World. If you expand the World tables, expand it. See, there are three different tables which are automatically coming inside this database world or schema world, city, country, and country language. So these are only for practice purpose. Now, I'll take few more minutes. So you are in the query tab. You are in the query tab 1. Yeah, click here. Now I want to create my own database or I want to create my own schema. So can you write a query, create, create. Now the question is, you can write create database, data. Yeah, it will give you suggestion. Yes, database. You can give your own name. Create database Madhuri. Yeah. So use a semicolon here. Yeah. Now you want to run this query. See, there is an option above. There are two that thunder options, thunder icons. You can use that first one. Yeah. So this will run your query. You can see in the output window, you have created a database. Now the question is why that database is not visible in the schemas. See, next to schema, there is towards right, there is that refresh arrows. If you go to schemas above. Yeah, there is that refresh arrow. Refresh on it. Now you can see your database name here. So how to create a database? Query is create database and give it a name. Now you want to use this database. You have created, but I want to use this database. Now come down to the query tab again. Enter. One more enter. Yeah. Now I want to use this database. How to use it? Mention use. You should mention your name, right? That's it. Run this query, select this query and run it. Select. First you need to select. Yes. If you directly run, everything would be run again. Now you can see you are using this database. You are inside this database. Whenever you try to log into this specific MySQL Workbench, you should always use database query. Now the question is, again, click on enter. Yeah, there is one more query, right? A query select database. Yeah, mention your database name. Now use a semicolon and select this query and try to run it. Now it is throwing an error. Selecting database and using database, both are same. But the difference is, there is one of them is data query language and one of them is data definition language. Now, what do you mean by data definition? What do you mean by data query? We would discuss in detail tomorrow, starting tomorrow. But just to give you an idea, the query written on line number 5 is an error query, or the output is wrong. I mean, it is not giving the right output. So after database, select database. After database, mention opening bracket and close bracket, that round brackets. Yes. There shouldn't be a space. Remove that space also. After database. Yeah. Now run this query. See, that error is also gone. Now, if you run this, you see you have selected that database. So you have selected that database. Use database, select database, both are same. Both will work same. There is a slight difference. So that difference we will discuss tomorrow. But just to give you an idea, how create database is different, how use database is different, how select database is different. Yes, Mihir, everything is recorded. So you can still go back and check the recording. So need not worry. We will see what do you mean by data definition, data manipulation, data query language starting tomorrow. But just to give you an idea, whenever you are writing any specific queries in SQL, if that query is a keyword, now create is a keyword, database is a keyword. Keywords are always highlighted in blue color. So if you are writing any SQL keyword, you should always write it in capital. We should follow that rule. You can still write it in small also. It is not that you cannot write in small, but there are standard ethics which are followed inside the IT industry. Whenever you are writing any keywords, write it in capital letters. Now, Madhuri, you can write it in small because it is not a keyword. So whichever SQL keywords you're writing, always write it in capital. It will always look interactive. It will always look easy to understand as well. Now, if you again rerun that create database, it will throw an error because already a database is created. Rerun it. See, can't create database, Madhuri, because it already exists. So you cannot create with the same name. You can give it a different name. But if you close this window again, close this complete SQL Workbench. Not this window, not this one, not this window. Yeah, Workbench. Okay, close this, command control also. Yeah. Now again, try to reopen from the search bar. Yeah, reopen it. Now try to log in. You have closed the server, you're relogging the server again. Then you will get that query window again. Now, if you see, come down, enter. Okay, now run that SQL statement again. Select database. Run that SQL statement. Run it. You can select it. Yeah. Maybe you can run. Yeah. See, run it. Now you see, earlier when she selected Madhuri, she was able to see some Madhuri name again, but it is now giving us null. Why is it giving us null? Now run that third line, use Madhuri. Done. Now rerun that select statement. Whenever you are logging to this MySQL Workbench, the first query which you should use is which database you want to use. Use that query. Use database. Only then it would be selecting that database and you can write the queries inside that. So first thing, whenever you log into this workbench, this server would be reactivated. You are starting a fresh connection. In that case, it is always recommended to use database name.
Yeah, Ritesh.
How do we know which database we are using if we are
Okay.
not selecting, and how do you see that?
Okay. So
Whatever is highlighted there on the left?
Yes. See, if you are using the very first statement, as I've said, you should use database. Only then you will be able to get which database you're using. So if you want to change the database, now come down. Now you want to use Sakila. Use Sakila. You can write that. Use Sakila. Just a moment. Do not run it. Enter. Click on enter. Yeah. Now go towards left. Maximize that Sakila. Go to tables. Maximize the tables. See, there are already tables. So what I'll do, go to line number 11 towards in the query. Yeah. Select star from. Yeah, from should also be capital. It's a keyword. From actor, ACTOR. Now you can mention actor in capital or small. Both will work. MySQL is a case insensitive language. Yeah, you can run this. Table Madhuri.actor doesn't exist. That means you are inside Madhuri schema, not inside Sakila. Now you use Sakila, run that query, line number 9. Yeah, now you run this. So you can see the data present in that. So if you want to change the databases, you should use Sakila. You can interchange the databases and you can run the query from, or you can run whatever you want from that specific database or a schema.
Hello.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, it's not showing like this Sekila and the world, all these databases.
So you haven't installed it correctly, it seems. If it's not available also, it won't be a problem. What I would recommend is create your own database. We will going further, we would be creating multiple tables. So need not worry.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? So we have only seen basics, how installation works. Going further, we would be starting with the queries, the languages which are present. Now, languages means in SQL also there are different sub languages, how you create a table, how you define a table. So all that processes we would be learning starting tomorrow. I have few questions, it seems. Yeah, recording is anyways available. Yeah, any other questions? Any other doubts you have?
Just
Yeah,
one confirmation. So when we are learning the MySQL, the SQL syntax, right, that we're using in MySQL. So when I learn this syntax, if I use the same syntax in SQL Server as well, would it still work, or are there any modifications required if I need to?
80% of the time the query is same. There are very
Okay.
few changes. Yeah, as and when required, I will help you with the changes which you can do it in. Help you in the sense, I'll let you know that this query can be written in MySQL this way, and in SQL Server it is slightly different.
Okay. So why do they call it as T-SQL? Is it only advanced queries
No,
are called as
no,
T-SQL,
no.
or the type or the
It is not
syntax that we
advanced.
use?
See, it is not advanced. When MySQL was introduced, MySQL was introduced with all the SQL features. But the people from Microsoft felt that there are few features which are missing in MySQL. Can't we add that features from our end and create our own SQL? So that's how they went up and created a Transact SQL. They have given it a name called as Transact SQL, which is nothing but a T-SQL. So
Okay.
there are few additional features which are not available in MySQL that can be created in T-SQL, that can be created in PL-SQL, which is Oracle SQL. Even this MySQL is a part of Oracle. But Oracle team have separately created their own database called as Oracle database. So there are few additional features which are available in that. That's the only difference.
Okay. But if we learn this syntax at 80%, we are covered for the other.
70-80% syntax is same. Only
Okay.
advanced level syntax like creating procedures. Now here we write create procedure, there also we write create procedure. But if you want to execute a procedure, here we call procedure, there we execute procedure. So slight changes.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
Yep. Any other questions?
The question that you asked earlier, right? So use data, use the, when you say use and database name and select database, it's still selecting the database. So the difference would be when you're saying use, then you will be able to
See, you use it, that means you will go inside the database.
yes, yes.
If you only select it, you are only selecting. But what we are doing, we are not doing anything. We are only selecting it. But
So
once you
basically,
use it,
when you're selecting a database, then it will show you what's inside that database, right?
yes.
After you use it.
Yep,
So that's
yes.
the only difference. Okay.
Yes. So if I again reiterate it, or I want to reframe it, you're trying to purchase any t-shirt. You will get that t-shirt, you will catch that t-shirt, you keep that t-shirt in your hand. But unless you wear it, that's how it works. Use means you are wearing that t-shirt. Select means you're only getting that t-shirt in the hand. You're not wearing it. That's how it works. And why to use select, why to use, you will get more insights going further.
Okay.
Now, any other questions?
Yeah.
Will you be able to share the installation document? It's just easier to
I'll
refer the
share. I'll
document.
share with the recording only. Now, how it is visible, I'll show you. Yeah, someone had a question.
Yeah. What is difference between tables, views, function?
Okay. Now we are in day one. We haven't touched the table also. Okay. I'll give you an idea. Going further, you will get more insight. But in simple terms, if you want, if you want an answer, table is nothing but a kind of permanent entity. View is nothing but, see, from one table, you can create one more table. But if you want to create a view with combination of multiple records in multiple tables, a view is created. So in simple terms, combination of multiple tables to create one single view is called as a view.
Okay. And for function?
Function is a reusable code. Function, you can call it as a calculator. There is a calculator, you give values and you use some addition, subtraction, it will give you output. That is how function works. You need to have two values. You need to give minimum two values and it will give you the output depending on the logic you have written.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If there are no questions,
which is better to take data from like a table or store procedure, which is better to create a visualization by using Power BI. So which data
anything which is more feasible for us, it is better. It is not always that you should always create a stored procedure. It is not always that you should create a view only. You can still call a table also. It all depends on the requirement.
Okay,
What
there is no
information
rule.
you want. What information you want from a table, whether you want complete table or whether you want only few records. If you want few records, you can still write a select statement, or else if there is a view created, you can call that view directly. Yeah, thank you, Madhuri. You can stop sharing your screen. Thanks for sharing. Let me share my screen where this the presentation would be available. I'll give you an idea.
Excuse me. Hello.
For you people, this is what, where this is kept. Just a moment. Give me a minute.
Do we get access to the app already? I thought it was after enrolling.
Which access you're trying to say?
The wherever you're seeing.
No, you will get access. You will get access once you see. If you people are joining directly from the link which is shared on WhatsApp, that is different. But if you have enrolled for this course, now how enrollment goes, once you go to the, give me a moment, I should log in from a different window. Yeah, give me a moment. I'll show you that also.
Okay.
So if you log in, see, once you log in, this is how the website will look alike. So you need to enroll for this course. You can go to the Explore courses. Here in the Explore courses, we are inside the free preview only. So you can click on this free preview course. So every time it opens a new window or new tab. Now there is an option. Buy now would be available after 5 days. You can click on enroll now, right? It would be automatically enrolled. This would be automatically available in your bucket called as courses. So if you go to that course, you can still see. Now, why this is giving me an option? Just a moment. So this is how it is visible for you. Access already enrolled. You can click on access now. Yeah, it will redirect you to the course directly, right? So it will take some time. So you are inside this course. You can see there is a data set which is already shared. I would be sharing in the Power BI. Sorry, not in the Power BI. I would be sharing here in the SQL. I assume that installation is not kept here. Yeah, I'll share here. You can maximize this course curriculum and SQL sessions, or else I'll create a new window, installation PPT. You can access that.
Okay.
So you are accessing class records this way, right? You are accessing class records this way. Now there is Why this month? Okay, you can select last month as well. This year, if you select, all 3 recordings will come. 1, 2, 3. Now today's recording is in still progress, so it will take some time.
It's showing Feb.
Now, here for me, it would be combination of multiple things because there are multiple trainers. But for you,
Okay,
it
so
would
Raj
be
will be able to
everything
see
would
all
be
the
visible.
3.
Yeah. So I would be sharing that PPT. Need not worry.
All right.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay. If there are no questions, we are good on time. Yep. Thank you, everyone. Let's connect back tomorrow.